Hello, everyone. Welcome to day 2 of the Realscreen Summit. You're here for Finding the Right Fit, Global Mega Producers and the 21st Century Super Indies. One quick announcement before I throw it over to the panel. We're recording this session, so when the mic comes around during the Q&A period, we need you just to wait for it, speak into the mic, so we can record your voice and make sure that everyone hears you. So without further ado, I'll throw it over to Chris Colin from Kinetic Content to introduce our panel. Thanks.
Hi, everybody. I can't remember off the top of my head what the actual formal name of the panel is, and it's not, there it is. Anyway, the panel is about consolidation in the production sector. There's a lot of activity in the production sector, and we're really lucky today to have a group of people who represent different experiences into the consolidation of the business. So I'm going to do some brief introductions, and then 4 of you now have video to introduce. So we have James Burstle from Argonon, Phil Siegel from Original, Paul Buccieri from ITV, Mark Soldinger from Firecracker, and Thomas Day from About Corporate Finance. So maybe at this end, James, we'll start with you. If you want to do a little setup of your video.
Sure. Well, I think it will demonstrate to you the range of what we do at Argonon, which is a global business. Our HQ is in London, and we have a significant business in New York, and we've just opened a new business in Vancouver in Canada. What we believe in Argonon is investment and support for world-class talent, and we've got a true spirit of independence, which I hope will come through in this little reel we've cut for you.
Tim buy House 1 for $1 million.
We built this new cave from the ground up. Don't touch my friggin' cat, right? Don't touch my cat for no reason.
I'm crapping myself. That's what I'm trying to do. You've got a knife in your hand. Oh my God.
It's not, I'm a foreigner in my own country.
I never thought I'd see this again.
I'm selling really fast, I'm selling really well, and I think we're going to do great.
Ka-ching! Well, hi, London.
We love you guys.
Great, thank you. And I think maybe your video set up, Phil.
Okay, well, so Original Productions was acquired, 75% of it was acquired about 3 years ago by Fremantle. And our roots really are in the blue-collar space. That's really where the bulk of our programming originates. But we've sort of broadened from there, but really the sort of high-risk, high-reward, ordinary people's stakes kind of driven product is mostly what we're known for. And this reel is just sort of a taste of what we do. Phil.
Also, the timer isn't going. I don't know if you care about that. I don't care about it, but
I do. cost a Thunderball at $150.
Wow! 300 feet! Here's the fire extinguisher!
It's original.
Paul Buscieri at ITV.
Thank you. One of the things I wanted to show you in this sizzle is that a lot of people here know us as a producer of content, but at ITV we're much more, we're a broadcaster, and we're going to show you some of the shows that we broadcast, as well as we're a distributor. And I want to just give you a little insight on some of the things we've done this past year.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. You are in at the beginning of something amazing. We are making history here. To work is elevating. To accomplish is superb.
Something different.
It's about finding a higher reality.
Something meaningful.
We've hit something and they want us on deck. It's just a precaution.
Something that's magical.
Crucial lines of inquiry were never pursued.
Why is everything always so complicated?
Does it surprise you?
One of the largest producers of scripted and reality series with innovative program production and distribution around the world. Leading the industry with aggressive growth and making creative partnerships and business deals. Distributing 40,000 hours of content to 3,000 broadcasters in over 250 territories.
Everybody get on board right now because this is happening.
ITV Studios is a leader in international television format sales and distribution with shows like AMC Networks and Sundance's Rectify, with offices worldwide and a focus on local productions and broadcasting. ITV finds real value for our partners. With a vast history of global sales relationships that have existed for decades, ITV's international resources maximize value on every piece of content with dedicated marketing events, inspiring global broadcasters, and localized hands-on marketing to launch shows successfully. The best in reality, the biggest dramas, and the boldest partnerships. ITV is proud to have Gurney Productions as part of the ITV family.
Good times have come our way.
We're giving them style, glamour, razzmatazz. Once they see what we've done here, there'll be no turning back.
Solinger from Firecracker.
Hi there, everyone. Yeah, Firecracker is a British company that is based in London. We recently opened an office in Los Angeles about 3 years ago. have about 150 people, and we're kind of known for getting access to extreme individuals, subcultures, and we were recently acquired in December by Tenopolis. So the following reel, I think, gives you a taste of the type of things that we delve into.
Love the feeling when we lift off. Watching the world so small. I love the dreaming when I think of.
If you want to do something spectacular, something special, something unique, you have to be willing to take really special, really unique risks. You know, I go into it expecting death.
Has to be diamonds. Diamonds everywhere.
Have a big wedding and a massive dress.
We're American gypsies.
This is definitely the ultimate gypsy wedding dress.
Swear to God, I'm gonna kill her. Give it to her.
Can I get a cuddle?
What have you won?
I've been waiting for this for ages.
I didn't know what the right decision was. I didn't know whether we did a good thing or a bad thing, and I spent a lot of time thinking about what was the right thing, wrong thing.
I am incredibly lucky because I have the greatest job in the world.
I would not think twice about shooting the infected dead.
My daughter knows that we only shoot zombies in the head.
Let's be honest, kids are fucking cool.
MTV asked young people around the world to film their bullying experiences.
Everything in this film
has been filmed entirely by us.
This is our story. Our story.
In our words. In our own words.
At that moment, I was like, poor couple will take over the world.
My job was to keep myself and the children alive until somebody finds us.
And then, Thomas, you don't have video, I presume, but maybe some charts and graphs or something?
Well, that's really unfair, isn't it? You put sort of 4 lots of really cool producers on in front of me with all this kind of stuff, and then I'm supposed to come in with a big drum roll showing people with calculators and spreadsheets, looking at them meaningfully and then pointing fingers at each other. Thomas Day, I'm CEO of About Corporate Finance. We specialize in selling TV and distribution companies. And I was lucky enough to be involved on the Gurney transaction. We sold Gurney to ITV. And I've also worked with James. I think we did the Remedy transaction. So 2 out of the 4 wasn't too bad. We've got offices in London and in LA. And I think we've closed just over 30, 35 deals in the last sort of 8-10 years. So quite an active space for us.
So we have, as you can see, I mean, a great group of people in the content business and advisor to the content business. We have representative of the consolidation. We have essentially 2 sellers in Mark and Phil, representing that point of view, and then 2 very different sort of points of view into the the aggregation and consolidation business in James and Paul, and obviously Thomas advising. So, open question to all of you guys. What do you think is spurring the interest in all of this activity at this point? Throw it open to anybody.
Well, for me, it's about world-class talent working with other world-class talent, because people feed off each other. And we knew when I was running Leopard Films that we came to a certain point of doing many great shows and building a good reputation. But in order to extend beyond that, we needed to attract more clever people around our table, because I think creativity spawns creativity. So that's why we decided to approach the guys at Remedy, and delightfully they decided to join us. And we've just launched a new joint venture with the head of documentaries from Cineflix, Nick Godwin. He started yesterday, actually, in a new venture with us. And in order to grow, you just need access to a bigger framework, I think. And when you have a bigger framework, you have security, because you know you've got fantastic infrastructure. And when you've got infrastructure, as a creative, you don't need to worry about the detail. So for us, it's about creating platforms where individuals can have an incredible freedom and know that they've got that handrail to get up the staircase.
Okay, why don't we talk a little bit about the different kinds of investors out there? There are banks, private equity, there's other corporations, sometimes people go public. Maybe Thomas, you can touch on a little bit about this and sort of what each of these represents to somebody.
I'll give you my perspective on what I think they represent. It might not be how they represent themselves. I think you've got media conglomerates who are the large entities who are really seeking to move into content, because I think there's a changing platform of distribution, and I think the one thing that's consistent is people watch programs. And by grabbing content producers, they can capture eyeballs. By capturing eyeballs, they can command advertising. So I think it's a flight to safety for content. You've then got, effectively, the private equity people, and they just see a growing industry that's increasing in value, and they are simply there to make a return on their money. They want to turn $1 into $2, and they will do that in the most efficient manner they can. Then you've got these sort of global players who are seeking to tie up the different territories. If you're going to move intellectual property around the different territories, instead of putting it through a third party, you might as well own the companies that do the production. So they build their network and actually have local producers who can localize content for the local markets. So it's about a consolidation and growth play.
So what's for the sellers? What's interesting about this this sector and this activity? What makes you feel like selling your company is a good idea?
Well,
obvious answer.
Yeah. I think the reality of it is that when you reach a certain point in your sort of productivity as a producer, and you start to grow, you realize that the ancillary opportunities and the international opportunities are definitely a part of that portfolio of growth that you want to tap into. Very difficult to do on your own, if not impossible. And so I think there's only a few companies out there, obviously Paul's one of them, who can really help drive that initiative. And so for us, it was really about trying to find a way to reach a bigger market, and hopefully in return, get access to content and formats and other opportunities and intelligence gathering, and get a sense of a broader community. Because the truth of the matter is yes, the US is a great supplier of content, but there's 2/3 of a world out there who know how to make shows just as well as we do.
And what makes you feel like, that moment is the right time versus waiting 2 years or waiting, another little bit of time? What makes you feel like then is the right time?
Well, for us, it was a combination of things. It was time for us, and it was sort of the lightning in the bottle. It all came together. It was time for Fremantle. So you never know. The truth is, the economy obviously can drive a lot of decision making for a lot of companies, but IP is king. And when it's time for growth, I don't think companies blink. I think if it's the right fit, they'll do it.
Yeah, I'll second what Phil's saying. I mean, for us, we've been approached over the years by lots of different companies, and we're 10 years old, and it never quite felt like it was the right time. And then, we had a breakout hit with Gypsies, and not that was the reason, but you have to look at the landscape of TV and wonder what's going to happen in a year from now. Is it still going to, how is it going to change? And also, because I'd obviously set up something in the States, we reached a point where we needed some help, some support, and by joining a group like Tenopolis, it was a no-brainer, because they have A. Smith in the States and Base, really good companies that can help give us that support and infrastructure, because at the moment all our production is being done in the UK, which is a headache when you're sort of making US shows. So it's a kind of combination, I think, of things. I think made it the right time for us.
And on the buying side, what makes a company as a target attractive to you?
Well, I've only been doing this a short time. My colleagues, Tom and Brian, have been doing it much longer than I have. But of course, profit is important. But I don't think it is, the only criteria for acquiring a company. It's what we can do together, how we can grow together, how we can align ourselves to reach common goals. Because if we're looking at a company and they're at a price point and we don't think we can grow them, that's not a company that I want to be involved with. So that's one criteria. Another criteria is there's this quote from a gentleman named John Wooden, and he says, success is never final, failure is never fatal, but it's courage that counts. And we're in television, but there are certain qualities that successful producers have that that quality of, when you're successful, you want to keep driving and going. When you go out and you put something together and you put all your heart, soul into it, and the ratings come in and you're dead, and you got to get up tomorrow and go back out there and do it again. There's that competitiveness that they have, and that competitiveness doesn't have to be overt. I think I'm a very competitive person, but I'm a quiet person, but I like to win. When one of the telling things about the Gurneys, when it was after the deal was done, but it made me feel good in the deal that we did, because we closed the deal at Christmas time. January 1st, the first email I got was from the Gurneys. And every day since that point, the first email I get usually in the morning from a US part of our company is the Gurneys. The last email I get at night is the Gurneys. And that's the type of people that we want to be in business with. We want people who want to, yes, we sold our company, it's been successful. We've been successful, but we want to grow it. I mean, you guys, are testament to that. Their packet came in right when I started ITV 5 years ago, and I wasn't at a point in the company where I could influence anything. I wish I would, because you guys have grown
you're very
tremendously
kind.
since that. So
You would have been a great partner.
yeah. So that's what that's what we look for.
It's a love nest.
Yeah.
I'd just like to second the point about when you start to work together, it's got to be 2 makes 5. There's no point in anybody selling their company or joining any company if they're not going to grow. And there has to be an alignment of objectives. What we've found working together between Leopard and Remedy, and we've been bringing a lot of talent into those businesses, we find that they come in and it suddenly gives them a new opportunity and a new platform and a bigger scale to work on. Suddenly, we're doing business in Canada. We're leveraging our rights outside of the United States in a way that we hadn't done before. So it gives you a greater range, and I guess it gives you a greater toolkit. And one thing that's really hot and important for us at Argonon is that the key players that join the group become part of the strategic planning.
Yeah.
So they're part of the action. They are part of this idea that we're growing something together and that we're going to come up with some clever ideas before that on our own we wouldn't have come up with.
And so there's a lot of good things that come out of this relationship. If you're thinking of selling your company, certainly I can think of a lot of stories that haven't necessarily gone so well, and different buyers sort of treat their acquisitions in different ways. Some are very hands-off, some are very hands-on, some are hands-on in a way that might be contrary to the way that you've run the company in the past. With the sellers, and Tom, feel free to jump in on this. Do you guys, was that a factor? I mean, what did you think about it? And tell us a little bit about the process that you went through to ultimately, once you made the decision to sell the company, what was that like for you?
Well, I can jump in, just having recently done it in December. I mean, it's a long process, and I think once you make that decision, there's a lot of work to be done, and you need to partner up with a really good mediator. And in our case, it was Tom Manwaring at Mediatique, who I think might be in the room, so I've plugged him. But those guys did a brilliant job in kind of finding the different partners that potentially were going to be interested in your company. You then have a process of meetings. There's a lot of due diligence to be done. Information memorandum to be put together, and it's a long, involved, tiring process. And thankfully, my partner in the UK was doing a lot of the heavy lifting. But once you sort of find that partner, you kind of, in my case, 10 years of building a company, you're basing that decision really on a couple of hours face-to-face with someone in a room. And let's face it, we're all going to be the most charming version of ourselves in the room, and you don't quite know, if that person's going to stay like that, or if it's all going to go, tits up and be a disaster. So I think I lost a lot of sleep about whether they were the right people, and we saw a lot of people, 8 or 9 different suitors, and it's really hard to make that decision based on just a short amount of face time. So you have to go and see the companies that they've already bought, sit down with them, ask them how their sort of, experience has been, what the pros, what the cons. And in our case, no one had a bad thing to say. So it's early days, but very optimistic.
I think you have to be, the reality of it is there are going to be bumps in the road. I think that the reality of it is you have a common goal, but there is also cultures and that sort of bridge that has to be gapped. I mean, clearly, when all of a sudden now you have a different financing drive, who's watching the money, approval systems, a board of directors, creative decision makers. And I think, and then in the beginning, and I think Tom actually referenced this morning in a panel, there were some people who came out of the woodwork from areas of Fremantle who wanted to sort of jump in, let's see the development report, let's start having meetings, let's talk about this, let's talk about this. Like, whoa, that's not what we signed up for. And so very quickly, they backed off and said, okay, well, let us know if we're interfering too much. So it was finding that balance so that we could all work together and drive the initiative, but learn how to work together. Because I think one of the big mistakes is if you buy that company for its culture and for what it can do, you can't smother it. And you can't pick it apart. You have to figure out how to nurture it and help grow it, as Paul was saying. That's the help you need. If it's, no, let's just pick it apart and take the parts that we want, that is, I think, a recipe for failure.
And on the buying side, what are some of the risks that you look at when you're evaluating these companies? As Mark said, you've got a couple hours in person, and you're looking at the charts and the graphs and whatnot. What goes through your head that's the possible downside?
Well, as you guys know, I'm not saying anything new to the room, that most acquisitions fail. So it's a very, very tightrope you walk. There's a really interesting book guys should read. It's called Curse of the Mogul. It targets U.S. acquisitions from 2000 to 2010. What we look for is obviously I'm going to talk now from a U.S. perspective. A lot of the people that we come across and we meet are people that we've had relationships for years and years and years, either when I was a producer or when I was a buyer. And it's not that hard to find out. You just start talking to people that have worked with them, and you find out where the stress points are. Because, as you were saying, in every relationship, there's going to be problems. And that's where I want to get to the heart of first, is when there's a problem, how can we work through it together? I think we have a competitive advantage at ITV because I was a producer, and I know that there's going to be up and down stuff. But it's tough. It's tough. You just, you gotta really, really do your due diligence beyond the books, but really look at the people. I'll continue to go back to that.
And there's always going to be a calculated risk. That's the nature of entrepreneurship. And you just have to live with that, and you have to get comfortable with that.
Yeah.
But for us, we really believe in being forensic in the detail, and that takes an awful lot of time and discussion, and not just looking, of course, what's in front of you, but what these people have to say to you in the room, what their relationships are like, what the commissioning editors say about them, what the colleagues say. We've all got history, we've all got baggage. So at the end of the day, you're going to have to take a value judgment.
Yeah.
And none of us is perfect. Obviously, we've all got history. But at the end of the day, it's about looking very, very carefully at the pros and cons, the strengths and weaknesses, and think, right, those strengths absolutely outweigh the weaknesses, and the weaknesses we're going to work with. And we're going to seize them as an opportunity.
Yeah.
But no doubt, it's always a calculated risk, and that's the nature of it.
In terms of the preparation, if you want to sell, that you go through as a company, sometimes it's a very different process than what you might do with your production accounting, et cetera. Talk a little bit about that, if you guys would. What do you have to put together?
I get all the fun subjects. Yeah, I mean, picking up on some of the themes that have been said, I think that whether it's interesting where I sit, because I act for buyers and for sellers, and there's a great deal of concern from both parties, because when you're buying a people-based business, you're not actually just buying the company, the deal's done, everyone can go their own way. You're marrying two businesses together. And I hear it consistently from both sides of the table. There's a lot of concern. You do a bit of investigation of the numbers, but the main thing is, can I work with these people going forward? The sellers get locked in agreements, but the buyers, the key people might change. So there's this kind of constant battle either side of trying to work out if it's the right fit. So I think the best thing you can do to de-risk that position is to give lots of exposure and try and make sure both parties have a reality about what they're doing, and try to strip away all the stuff that's non-relevant. And picking up on that point, the first one is the numbers. In America in particular, businesses prepare their information on a cash basis, and then they try and make their profits disappear so that the tax man doesn't get the piece. When you sell a business, you want the opposite. You want to have this big profit, lots of cash flowing in, and it's also prepared on a accruals basis, which is a sort of invoice basis. So, a lot of buyers or a lot of sellers go into this process without doing the preparation work. And I think what it does is it sets false expectations before they even start, because they start negotiating a deal based on numbers that haven't even been defined. So I would say every time, preparation, preparation, preparation. Get in a good advisor, get in someone who knows the space, and work with them. Because what often happens is buyers come and tease people into the marketplace. And I think people don't want to be seen to be being up for sale. So they prefer to be sort of coerced, encouraged into a deal. And that's why they're not prepared for it, because they're genuinely working, doing their job, and suddenly they get approached. And if you get in that position, start recognizing you're a desirable company. The buyers actually prefer it when you're prepared for the process that's coming. So go out there, prepare your information, and get ready for what's going to be a very grueling process and a very trying process. But at the same time, I generally find that people enjoy it as well, because they enjoy the perspective others have on their company and how they perceive their company. I think it's quite rewarding.
And once you've done that preparation, is there an expectation that you have that at this point has been perhaps set by the marketplace, that you feel like this is the kind of deal that we want to try to get, this is the kind of multiple, this is the kind of structure?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone always focuses on multiple, because it's very quickly people learn that's the jargon. It's EBITDA, it's multiple, it's percentage of cash, it's all these things. And I think that people become very focused on it, and it's the entry point into the discussion. And this is the hesitant nature of the deal doing. Because I know what everyone's doing. All the sellers are going, if I only get that bit of cash and I never see another thing, that's the bit I can rely on. And the buyers are going, if I can minimize how much cash I'm putting out the door and not actually like get fired in the process for buying the wrong company, you know, there's this great risk management both sides. Whereas it's about a relationship. And I've been involved in the sector long enough now to have seen those relationships mature, both through the first earn-out and through the second earn-out. And it's about a 5, 7, 10-year commitment to work with another group. So, you know, the cash will come, get the right fit.
Do you feel like, in terms of the consolidation, that there are some advantages? I mean, obviously, certainly in the U.S., the networks themselves have been consolidating. The groups are bigger and bigger. They have more strength in terms of the positions that they take. Do you feel like you counterbalance that a little bit on the production side by banding together with other, you know, affiliates?
You cannot lose the personal touch. If you lose the personal touch, you're screwed. Because at the end of the day, networks are commissioning individuals, and they commission brilliant experts at what they do. And if you become a corporate machine that's run by accountants, and you lose that flair, which is at the end of the day what brought us all into this industry, you're screwed. You know, your industry will fail because no one will commission you. So it is about getting that balance right, and it's very, very difficult, of course, to get that balance right.
It is. I think it's fair to say that all of our networks took a wait-and-see attitude with us, but they were very, very supportive. But clearly, they wanted to see what was going to happen. And once they realized that nothing was going to change, then it was really back to business as usual. But that definitely, they want to know, what does it mean?
Mm. But I actually think beyond, of course, the creative is important, and the networks want to feel comfortable, and you're working with specific individuals. But when you can add scale, and you can bring something different to the table that makes a deal more advantageous for the network and for yourself, that's the perfect blend. And you know, we've made a lot of unique distribution deals with networks where we've covered off some of their risk. They've got more value. We've got more product on the air. And to me, you know, when I put my hat on when I was a producer, it was about, I got to get as much product sold as possible, and I will do what is necessary to get that product sold. Having a backer saying, we'll gap finance you. An example, we all know that the networks usually, lots of times, August, September, they have a problem financing productions for the next year. They've spent their budget, but yet they want shows to be on in January and February. For a company that has scale, like the companies you guys are with, we'll say, we'll gap finance you. We'll put on $5 million, $6 million. You know, you pay us in January. And to me, giving our partners every opportunity to succeed, doing things like that, I think that's creative as well, beyond just the idea.
I think that's true. I think that it gives you a competitive edge. I mean, it allows us to get into production even before the ink is dry on a deal. They know that we will actually supply the product for them, and they're good for it, and they know they're going to have it. So in essence, we become the bank, and it is very advantageous. Sometimes it gets a little hairy. I mean, we've been out as much as $8 million. And that's tight, but you know, it is the reality of it, and it is one of the advantages of being partnered with an international company.
This takes us back, of course, to the Communications Act in Britain that gave producers the ownership of their intellectual property. Thank God they did, because you know, we cannot survive unless we have access to finance and resources. It's completely transformed the creative industry, and it's made IP the absolute bedrock of our industry globally. And of course, you know, you have to maximize that, and you've got to make sure you've got revenue streams, maximizing every single last penny from your intellectual property. So for us, it is a challenge here in the United States. There is still that mentality that, you know, networks want to buy and own everything, and sometimes the properties remain on the shelf. They don't get exploited. We have a distribution business. I mean, we all distribute, and you know, it's incredibly valuable because it brings an extra revenue stream to the table. It means we can then invest in talent and come up with the next big thing, which of course is what everybody wants. And I'm not talking about becoming so big that you're trying to dominate anybody. It's about partnership. You just got to make sure that there's a really good balance between networks and producers sharing success so that you can invest in the next big thing together.
In terms of the deal-making process itself, once people have decided, okay, we're going to get into this together and we're going to try to make this work, talk about points at which it can derail. Are there points at which it can go wrong? And
yes.
Fill us in.
Yes.
Every step of the way.
I can just tell you, until the final signature is on the page, it can derail. And there's probably 4 or 5 main areas. I think one of the most common ones is what I call deal fatigue, which is 2 parties, as I explained earlier, the seller party's not ready to really engage with the process properly, so everybody just sits and watches them. It's like watching someone get ready to go out, right? They just sit there and watch this person for 4 months preparing their information. People get tired. The exciting deal they wanted to do is no longer exciting. And if you start going into 9 months, 12 months before things get done, both sides get frayed and all they're seeing is problems. And there's a kind of negativity that falls on both sides. So a deal is at risk at all times from all angles. And then there can be forces outside the deal itself that can cause it to derail. We were doing one deal where we'd agreed everything, and we were just coming up to signature, and it was a private equity group that had backed the acquisitions, and their first acquisition went pop. It was nothing to do with us. And it was 2 days before we were due to sign, and our deal got killed because their first deal went wrong. So it can be even something as remote as not involved in your deal. So I do believe that the preparation phase, I always say it keeps the back end fresh and keeps the pace up. If you can shorten that back end, it's good for the buyers and the sellers.
And do you guys feel like there's been so much consolidation? It feels like you look around and so many companies in the U.S. and certainly in the U.K. have been acquired. The consolidation has been immense. Do you feel like there are fewer people? Do you feel like this is a trend or a frenzy that's going to continue? Do you, like ITV has done some acquisitions outside of the UK and the US? Is that the next frontier, or a continuing frontier? How do you feel about where we go from here with this movement?
Well, I hope there's more companies to sell. I really do, because if there isn't, I'll just take the mic off and go. Yeah, exactly.
I think there's an interesting article in Broadcast a couple of months ago, which was sort of suggesting that it would slow down, and that companies would start umbrellaing talent as opposed to buying companies. They'd find good talent in companies and offer them kind of umbrella deals as opposed to shelling out, however much money to buy the whole company. And I think that's something that might happen a lot more in the near future. And certainly in our case, it was a thought that I had, because as I said earlier, you weren't quite sure what was going to happen in the TV landscape and how many more of these kind of big deals would be occurring. So I guess it's just about timing and trying to forecast what might happen.
I think it is. It potentially could get harder and harder, I think, for companies coming up to make the kind of deals that have been made today, for a bunch of reasons. But I think that we're on the cusp of sort of a new fracture again with digital content, and I think there's going to be some more consolidation in the US in terms of these cable networks. I think there's been a lot more international growth, and I think that will continue, and I think that will change the landscape here. I think it's interesting. We're even seeing, even in terms of pitching and selling, we start to see sizzle tapes becoming pilots. It's like we're going back to 1950 when producers had to literally fund their own pilots. So I think there is a landscape change, and I think it will make it harder for smaller companies with cash flow issues to sort of make that next leap. So I think we're all going to be in a cooling off period.
And what about on the consolidating side? How do you guys feel about it?
I'm not worried about the next generation. There are millions of great people coming up through the ranks, not only in the Western world, but also in China and India and Brazil. That's one reason why we've got to stay ahead of the game. Because by God, if you look at really innovative digital formats, they're all coming out of China and India and Brazil and these emerging markets. So I'm not in the slightest bit worried about consolidation slowing down. If anything, we've got to keep staying one step ahead because there's so much creative talent coming up through the ranks that there's a real wealth of talent out there.
I think things, as we all know, things are changing constantly, but things have always been changing, and you know, what was successful in the past many years ago is now becoming more prevalent today. For us, I think there will always be these outliers, these entrepreneurs that are those, I don't know what the word, that have that it factor. You know, for ITV, for us, our acquisition team, you know, we see a lot of really incredibly creative people all over the world. We're trying to stay focused on a few key markets, and in those markets, we think there is an abundance of talent.
So thank you. Well, we got about 10 minutes left, so we're going to open up for questions. If anybody has any questions, please raise your hand. I think there are a couple mics. Anybody? Nobody wants to buy or sell their company, or has anybody thought about how to do that? Here we go.
Following up on what you just said, Paul, what markets are you focusing on?
Well, there's the Nordics area we like a lot. Obviously, the U.S. is a major focus for us, so we'll be looking here aggressively.
How do you, if you buy a company, how do you make sure that the company isn't in kind of positioning itself for sale, squeezing the life out of its creativity by focusing on the numbers, and in a post-sale, target-driven earn-out, the same thing happens? How do you manage that process, both as buyers and sellers, to try and make sure that the stuff that's of value in the company, the creativity, remains front and center?
That's a great question.
Well, for us, we were always prepared to walk away from the deal because we had a vibrant business. But I think you have to be very careful about understanding what you're getting into, because there is a to and fro here, and the key to that is the generation of IP and the goodwill of your company to continue to build on those relationships. I think that making sure that the principals in the company are not intending to just sort of literally have a liquidity event in their lives and leave. They want to know that there's going to be some stability there and some passion to continue to develop and nurture those relationships so that they have a value that they're investing. That's their risk and their reward, but they need to know that. That's a big part of the conversation, I think, that happens when these companies start to talk about if there's going to be an acquisition. They want to know what's in your head. They want to know what you're thinking. They want to know what your plans are. What would you like to do? And I think they can get scared off very quickly if they start to hear, well, I'd like to get a yacht and go to Ibiza, you know, as opposed to...
I have heard that.
Yeah, I'm sure. As opposed to, this is what I want to do, the company. This is where we'd like to grow. This is what we're not doing. These are places where we want to learn how to grow. And I think that's the messaging. It's very important to understand who you're getting into business with. If you don't have somebody who still has a life force and wants to continue, then that's probably going to scare off a lot of buyers.
You can enshrine that investment of the people coming into the business actually in the framework of the deal. You know, obviously you can, you know, some companies believe in earn-outs, others we believe in partnerships. So we give equity stakes and positions in the strategic management of the business to people joining the company, so that they feel they're properly vested in the future success and growth of the company. So in the future, if we do decide at some point to sell or to bring in investors or whatever it might be, these people are going to have a stake in that. They're going to be part of the action. You want partners. You want them to feel that they're part of the action.
I think also you want to find people that see this is the beginning. This isn't the ending. This is the beginning of something so much more. You know, and that's what we look for.
I think for us, as I said earlier, we just reached a threshold where we couldn't we couldn't really do much more without some serious help from someone else, and that's the position we put ourselves in. So it is, like Paul said, it's the beginning of kind of a new decade for us.
And I don't think you can actually, I mean, as someone who prepares companies for sale, I don't think you can really primp a company or prep a company for sale per se. You can put it in the best shape, you can highlight its best features, but there is a very exhaustive and detailed process that comes in, and it takes 6 months. So anything cosmetic that you've put in place, you know, will actually fall apart during that investigation process. So I think everyone should always view it as an honest process rather than something you've just done for the sale.
Other questions?
Can you explain the laws regarding IP ownership, how they differ between the UK and the US?
Yeah. They don't have any. No.
Do you want to do that, Mark?
Yeah, I mean, it's just really hard to own your IP in the US. But saying that, I mean, in the UK, it's obviously a lot easier. The dream is to bring kind of formats or talent over here and own it. There's a much better chance of getting away with it. But saying that, in our situation, we've teamed up with Base with A. Smith on a couple of things, and they're such a kind of A-list company that they do a lot with Fox, Hell's Kitchen, all the rest of it, that they've managed to own a lot of their IP in the US, and we're nowhere near that stage. No one really knows us in America.
They're producers for hire on Hell's Kitchen.
Just
hang on, I did the A. Smith deal. They're a lot more than that.
Right,
They were a lot more.
Sorry, I've cut you off.
No, it's all right. But yeah, in a nutshell, I mean, it's incredibly hard, I think, to own your IP in America, but hopefully that might change in the near future.
Yeah, but in the UK, just to be really clear, if you make any show for the BBC, for ITV, sometimes for Sky actually as well, for Channel 5 and for Channel 4, you automatically own that show. You own the format and you own the finished programs. The channel have a stake in it, and it's generally 15% of any back end goes back to the channel. But you as a producer retain 85%. Therefore, we can take a show such as Cash in the Attic, which many of you may know. We've made it here in the United States. We've sold it in 167 countries all over the world. The BBC, who commissioned that show, they've got lots of kickback from that, so they've made good money out of it. And of course, for us, it's really fired a process of being able to fund development and build our business and build the next set of originations. So in that sense, it's been life-changing.
There's in the UK, because of the regulations, 25% of the buy goes to the independent sector. So they are required to commission 25% of their shows that they commission has to come from the independent sector. And in the US, what I find is that when you create leverage, the conversation changes.
Yeah.
Probably have time for one more question, if anybody has one. Maybe two, if the first one is short.
Thomas, I had a question as to which comes first in your business model, the seller or the buyer?
I didn't hear the front end of that.
How does your business model work? Does the seller come first or the buyer? You have a stable of buyers that are looking for properties, or you're looking for sellers to come to you?
I don't want to tell everyone this because they'll all want to do it. It's quite easy, actually. You tend to speak to both. So I spend 50% of my time speaking to buyers about what they're looking for, and I spend 50% of my time speaking to companies to try to find the companies that meet the requirements that across the board the buyers have told me. And we interchange between them, but acting both buy and sell side on different transactions. But I mean, I think it's generally agreed in my world that most parties want the sell side, because when you're acting on the buy side, you might be one of a number of parties. So it just adds another complication into the buying process. Whereas hopefully when you've got great companies like these guys, you know that someone will want to buy it, and you'll be successful.
Anybody else? Last one, going once, going twice. All right, well, thank our panel, please. They've been great.
Thanks, Chris.